le deuxième tour, en tout cas. Au deuxième. On enlève tout pour venir, tu allais faire la configuration.
Donc ça commence, on sait de quelle heure.
Non, il n'est pas encore arrivé là-bas. Et maintenant, il est là. Il faut venir voir si tu me connais. Il faut que je parle en continu.
Il parle en continu. Communique avec lui, il dit qu'on entend. Je reçois, mais il y a un parasite qui tue comme ça.
Ouais, c'est ça, justement. Ah, il dit que ton son arrive en ligne. Le micro qui est ouvert.
Bienvenue à tous, bienvenue à Madame la Ministre. Nous sommes heureux de vous.
Welcome, welcome, Madam Minister. We're delighted to welcome you at the African Development Bank. Before we start, we would like to take a few moments to hear security instructions. If you look around you, you'll see agents dressed in red. Please locate them, and in case of an emergency, please follow their instructions. Please walk calmly out of the room, out of the auditorium. Please stay calm, and we will take you to the gathering area. Thank you very much, and very happy Women's Day to you all.
Madame la Ministre de la Femme,
Distinguished Minister for Women, Family and Children of Côte d'Ivoire, Nasseneba Touré, Madam Senior Vice President of the African Development Bank Group, Marie-Laure Akin-Olugbade, distinguished members of the Board of Directors, members of senior management, dear colleagues and guests, representatives of civil society, dear pupils from the Notre-Dame Plateau School, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all and welcome. Whether you are in the auditorium or are following us on the live streaming, we are delighted to welcome you this morning. And before we proceed with our event, I would like to indicate that we will mostly be speaking French this morning, although we will have a few speakers speaking English. For your convenience, we have a French-English simultaneous interpretation service provided. Ladies and gentlemen, we convene this morning to discuss a very important topic, that is to say justice for her rights, justice and women's economic empowerment in Africa. We are convening in celebration of International Women's Day, and as you all know, when a woman is empowered, she not only transforms her own life, but she will also inspire her community and become a driving agent in her community. I'm Inde Oligol. I am a program manager within the Gender, Women's and Civil Society Department at the bank, and I'm delighted to be here with you today. I would like to invite our director, Gender, Women's, Civil Society Department, Jemai Manjuki, our director, to come and deliver her opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Oli, Your Excellency Nasseneba Touré, Minister for Women, Family and Children of the Government of Côte d'Ivoire, Senior Vice President Marie-Laure Akin-Olugbade, distinguished guests, colleagues, civil society partners, teachers, students who are joining us today, ladies and gentlemen. I'm one of the few that will be speaking in English. Good morning to you all, and welcome to today's celebration of International Women's Day. Excellency, we are deeply honored by your presence today. Your leadership sends a clear message that advancing women's rights is not peripheral to what we do, but it is central to national development, to economic transformation, and to Africa's prosperity. We thank you for joining us for this important celebration and dialogue. I also warmly welcome the students, teachers, and civil society partners that are with us today. This conversation belongs to you as much as it does to policymakers, because the systems we discuss shape real lives and real futures. As we mark International Women's Day, we join voices across Africa and globally in affirming this year's theme, rights, justice, action for all women and girls. This theme reminds us that progress requires more than aspiration. It demands protection of rights, it demands accessible justice, and deliberate action that transforms institutions and economies. Today, we seek to bridge two conversations that are often treated separately: economic empowerment and rights and justice. Because for the millions of women and girls across our continent, these are not separate realities. A young woman may complete her education, yet face barriers to inheritance or land ownership. A woman entrepreneur may access finance, yet lack secure property rights to grow her business. A worker may earn income, yet struggle we eat, they're ensuring community resilience, they're at the forefront of crisis response and recovery. And yet we know they continue to do this, facing many structural barriers, whether it's access to finance, lack of property rights, harmful social norms, the disproportionate share of unpaid care work, and much, much more. And these gaps have an economic cost. National decision demonstrate is that when political will, legal reform, and institutional follow through align, we can bank, we support this structural progress by strengthening institutions, improving policy and budgeting systems so that they're gender responsive, expanding access infrastructure that connects women to markets and services. Because we know inclusive growth is not built through isolated projects. It is built when systems work, laws protect rights, when institutions are accountable, and when opportunities reach those who are historically excluded. Progress also requires men and boys as partners, and I am so glad to see so many of you men in this celebration. When men support women's access to land, to education, to leadership, and to economic opportunity, households are stronger and economies are more resilient. We have many young women in this room this morning. To you young women here today, your education, your voice, and your aspirations matter. Your dreams are not too ambitious for Africa. In fact, they are exactly what Africa needs. To the teachers who came here with you today, to the civil society leaders, you are shaping norms. You are growing the next generation of leaders, and you're strengthening accountability for gender equality. To the policymakers and institutional leaders who are here today, economic investment and legal reform must advance together if we are to ensure inclusive growth and if we are to ensure that African women and girls thrive. As we mark International Women's Day, let us commit not only to celebrating progress, but to accelerating action so that systems work not just for some women, but in alignment with today's theme, for all women and girls. It is now my distinct honor to invite our Senior Vice President, Marilu Akinolubade, to deliver welcome remarks on behalf of the African Development Bank Group. Thank you.
que je trouve mes notes.
One of the reasons we are here today is to see how we can translate commitments into outcomes. It's no longer a question of demonstrating that gender equality is important. I think that's crucially clear and established. The statistics show this clearly, but it's more a matter of scale, of the speed with which we can act in order to unleash Africa's full potential. The African Development Bank looks forward to continuing working with Côte d'Ivoire as well as all regional member countries to strengthen judicial and rights-based systems in order to enable truly inclusive development and economic growth. Allow me, much like Director Njuki did earlier, I'd like to address the women here, the young women in this room as well as online. Those of you who are students or professionals, young entrepreneurs, you who are at the beginning, or the middle, or maybe towards the end of your careers, let me tell you, Africa needs you. Africa needs your talent. It needs your creativity. It needs your leadership. Because the transformations that our continent needs will be driven by your generation. Be bold, be innovative, take on responsibilities, take on leadership positions, and particularly make sure you make yourself heard around the table. At the African Development Bank, we have a very simple belief. When women are able to advance and fulfill themselves, economies grow. When women are able to act, the future, the very future of Africa is at stake. Because Africa will not be able to grow with only half of its potential. Africa will only be able to fulfill its full potential, its full future, when all of its women and young girls are able to innovate and to lead. Women's rights are not only a matter of equality, this is a precondition of growth in Africa. Together, we will be able to translate this vision into a reality for Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my distinct honor to call on Minister Nasseneba Touré, Minister of Women, Family and Children of Côte d'Ivoire, to join me here and to deliver her statement. Excellency, we are very honored by your presence and very much look forward to hearing you.
Madame la vice-présidente.
Madam Senior Vice President of the African Development Bank Group, Mrs. Marie-Laure Akin Olukbade, Dr. Jemima Njuki, Director of the Gender, Women and Civil Society Department of the African Development Bank, Dr. Amzi Ali from the staff department, Mrs. Jakite from the Magriatout. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Mrs. Anastasie Kouadio, head of the cooperative. Dano Akwaji, traditional chief, distinguished dear participants and ladies and gentlemen. Let me start by sharing a very firm belief of mine. Will only accelerate There are drivers of economic growth.
Les femmes représentent environ la moitié de la main-d'œuvre agricole, précisément le cas de la Côte d'Ivoire. 60% de la main-d'œuvre financière. Elle est profondément économique.
Also profoundly economic or of economic significance. A woman who cannot secure a piece of land legally will not be able to invest in it. And they'll only have to be able to work on that land, but with no legal holding. A woman who cannot ensure that her activity is formalized will not have access to credit, will not be able to enjoy her rights, and will therefore be confined to operating within the informal economy. Meaning that access to rights is a key lever of economic activity. And this is very much at the heart of the vision of Côte d'Ivoire under the enlightened leadership of His Excellency President Ouattara, who believes that gender equality is very much at the core of our government action. And it is, in fact, enshrined within the Constitution of 2016. Article 26 enshrines that equality and the equal access of rights to both women and men of Côte d'Ivoire.
Several reforms are in place to empower women. We have legal reforms which clearly establish offenses, notably gender-based violence. Gender-based violence of various forms. They could also comprise violence in workplaces and even discrimination. You would note with me, we've also criminalized rape, we've criminalized female genital mutilation, and we have laws relating to succession which have clearly stated the rights of women in families. Heads of families in Ivorian law include women and men. And so the reform on marriage seeks to ensure a proper legal foundation and access to women's rights is also reflected in Parliament, where there is the requirement of a 30% quota for women to be elected in Parliament. This was a reality during our last elections last September. I would like to thank the African Development Bank for its support in helping roll out this reform. Again, we need to do more. These reforms reflect a clear political will to establish equality as a concrete principle of governance. However, is this 30% representative quota sufficient for us to achieve equality? We need the commitment of each and every one. It is for this reason that I'd like to thank the men who are present in this hall, he for she. Please give them a round of applause. For such change to be made possible, we need to change the paradigm. And to achieve this, we need to raise awareness. We need to ensure inclusiveness. We need to adopt an approach which is a traditional approach, a religious approach. And it is for this reason why the traditional palaces in Côte d'Ivoire, but also religious leanings in Côte d'Ivoire need to get involved to ensure that we make this switch from just the mere quota, because as women we represent 48% of the population of Côte d'Ivoire, and so the quota for women is not an issue of minority, but to ensure equality, given that we have the same number as men in Côte d'Ivoire. Again, we know that adopting laws is not the first stage. The first stage begins in our minds through awareness raising, and Côte d'Ivoire has put in place, with the support of its partners, several platforms, about 100 platforms nationwide. And these platforms meet under a steering committee chaired by the Ministry of Gender, the Ministry of Security and Defense, the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Education, as well as the community leaders and the revered traditional rulers and religious leaders, so as to discuss within these platforms on matters relating to female rights. And so transformation is made effective when it is reflected in the lives of women, and this needs everyone to be involved. As such, Côte d'Ivoire has put in place a national mechanism to guarantee access to women, access to justice for women. And through these platforms, they're working nationwide on a yearly basis, and we have platforms to educate daily. These platforms help forge ties with social services, and I would like to invite women to spread the message at regional level, at your departments and districts, to ensure that women get the information and for us to achieve equality. There's also a toll-free number. It is 1328, and this toll-free number enables women to quickly gain access for legal help. It could be for land matters, it could be for injustice regarding employment, also to provide medical assistance. And so thanks to this mechanism which is in place, we have recorded more than 9,600 women who benefited in their path towards reconstruction and development. Madam Senior Vice President, you have the figures, and so we are wondering, why did we have 2,900 cases in 2011, and these cases involved limited resources, no access to education, feminicide, rape cases, and from 2011 to 2025, we have 9,600 cases. So these instruments and platforms have helped women to speak up, have helped women to go beyond the traditional and cultural burden to enable women to raise their voices or to speak up. And so justice for women cannot be possible without economic empowerment. In 2024, the government of Côte d'Ivoire held the general meeting or assembly for women so as to discuss with women and to note their concerns. The women made known their concerns. They want to get involved at all levels. However, they need to get educated. They need access to literacy. And so schooling, which is difficult for some ladies due to several cases, loss of a parent due to the economic situation, and led to some girls dropping out of school. And so there is the concept of the second chance school, which helps women and girls get training. We have 135 centers spread nationwide in Abidjan, in other cities and villages. What is important to note from what we are presenting and working, but also creating, is that when a woman is economically empowered, she's able to stand for her rights, she's able to face daily challenges, she can protect her children and fully get involved in the economic and social life of her family, her community, and her country. I would digress a little bit from my script and share the experience of the Women Support Fund of Côte d'Ivoire, initiated by the First Lady of Côte d'Ivoire in 2012. This support fund for Côte d'Ivoire began with a non-significant amount. And so loans are provided to the tune of 50,000, 100,000, and maximum 200,000, which loans are granted to women. And there is an understanding to ensure training in entrepreneurship, and this understanding is with microfinance institutions. In 2024, we carried out a survey, and we had 450,000 women in Côte d'Ivoire who were able to move away from poverty, who were able to make their businesses formal, who went away from the informal sector and were able to grow their businesses. Also, they were able to pull out 2,200,000 people out of our 2 million people population size. And so this is simply a result of women being economically empowered, because their first concern is their children, second concern is their spouse, and even when she's not working, they would want their spouses to be properly dressed, to be well dressed for church services, to be well dressed for religious events, for example. And so women think about the welfare of their families, they think about their households, and the women's priority, the African women's priority, revolves around their parents, but also the parents of the man with whom they're sharing their lives. And so these are those people who fall within the statistics of 2,200,000 Ivorians. Just to let our young sisters understand that when we talk about empowerment and justice for ladies, it's not a topic on feminism, but it's a topic on justice and equality. And so implementing our objectives and achieving them would only cannot be possible when we see the structure of our society, when we consider our culture and also our origins. As such, the involvement of our traditional leaders, of our traditional leaders, our religious leaders, remains critical for us to achieve this goal. And the goal is equality, empowerment, and the well-being of women. In this regard, Côte d'Ivoire has developed several programs. We launched in December 2025 a program to develop initiatives and to build women's development capacities. The Vice President mentioned a while ago that it is one of the key policies which will roll out in our 2026-2030 National Development Plan. This program will help support women towards managing businesses. We're going to have literacy programs, also access to income generating activities. And so there is need for us to modernize agriculture and to be able to deal with state-of-the-art industrialization, to handle artificial intelligence, and also to properly ensure that women are up to date with technological advances. Often we hear when women go to the bank to get loans, they try to know their collateral. And so it's important for you to get bankable projects. Microfinance institutions are private companies who decide to provide loans and also make gains so as to grow. But when your project is analyzed and it is not sustainable, it's difficult for you to benefit from funding. As such, we need to learn how to design bankable projects. In Côte d'Ivoire, we have a clear ambition. We would like to ensure that subsistence activities grow into companies which create jobs but also wealth. With agricultural activities which are linked to transformation and family-sized businesses all over Côte d'Ivoire. Ladies and gentlemen, this progress at national level have made us firmly believe that what is possible in Côte d'Ivoire is possible throughout the continent, on condition that we work together. I'm repeating, together. Again, together. Let me share with you a Malinke proverb which states, to break a strand of a broomstick, you need to simply place the strand between both of your fingers, and with some tiny pressure you break the broomstick. However, to be able to get a bunch of a broomstick, you need several sticks. And so I would like to invite you all to try and break a broom. It's going to be impossible to break a broom. However, I am convinced that if we come together and we hold a broom, we can jointly break the broom in no time, because it's going to be a whole mix of strength. And it is by working together that we shall achieve equality, more social justice for women. And so women should be the first supporters of women in politics, in business, in studies at all levels. When women get access to productive resources, we have high productive yield. The income at household levels, at households also grow. And so this ambition falls in line with the African Union's Agenda 2063, which fixes equality between women and men at the heart of the continent's transformation. To achieve this, national effort should be accompanied with collective effort, because women's economic empowerment goes beyond national borders. It has to do with Africa's development as a whole. And so if we want to fast-track our continent's development, we should have our collective action guided by three priorities. First, to guarantee effective access to justice for women, with the support of women, clearly. Second priority, to ease women's access to productive resources, notably finances and land. Third priority, we need to strengthen women's participation in economic and political decision-making. When we consider this, it will enable women to participate at all levels of decision-making. Often we hear, what are you doing, miss? And you hear the responses, I'm a medical student, I am working I'm working to become a state-registered nurse. because I'm studying at INFAS. But when you ask about politics, they're like, no, we're not involved in politics. And so women need to understand that if the African woman is not present at all levels, from the bottom of the pyramid to the summit, they will not be able to carry out proper advocacy on the daily realities of families and African women. Justice for women is not just a moral requirement, it's a Republican duty. Personally, on my part, it's a Republican duty. It is a condition to ensure the sustainability of our nations. And today we do observe crises and conflicts nationwide. We keep on seeing a crisis growing around the globe, and we see those who suffer greatly from the crisis, be it in Iran, in Israel, in Africa, in the southern part of Congo, in the Kivu region, in South Sudan, in the northern part of Burkina Faso, northern part of Mali. First, we have women and children who suffer greatly, and so we need to stand united so as to fight for justice, for equality, and to ensure the presence of women at all levels, at all the spheres of decision making. This is the sine qua non condition for sustainable development of our nations. It is only by fully liberating energy and talents and the creativity of African women that we shall build an Africa which is more prosperous, more inclusive, and truly one that masters its destiny. To the young girls here present in this auditorium, I would like to let you know that the 2030 agenda, the 2063 agenda bears your name. It bears the name of Nasseneba Kone, it bears the name of Akisi, Awukan. It bears your names. Those are your names. And this country, Côte d'Ivoire, bears your name. Madam Senior Vice President did mention, please be committed. Be involved everywhere, in the military, national champions. You should be those who ensure our country's food sovereignty. You should be involved in the transformation. You should be everywhere. On this note, I would like to end my statement while encouraging youths to take their place to ensure total sovereignty of the African continent. Thank you.
Nous remercions Madame la Ministre.
We would like to extend our gratitude to Madam Minister for her inspiring statement. She did mention the deliberate efforts made by Côte d'Ivoire while stating how important it was to ensure women's economic empowerment. Also, she mentioned how we all present here, women, men, and youths, need to play the important part we need to play so as to build a just society and an inclusive society. That said, we would like to screen a 3-minute video where we will understand the work and impact of the African Development Bank as well as its initiatives on the field. This video will also reveal our institution's constant commitment to ensure women's empowerment, but also inclusive development in Côte d'Ivoire.
La société coopérative Les Moissonneurs est productrice de manioc et de bananes plantains. Et en 2012, on était 150 femmes. On s'est mis ensemble parce qu'on avait des problèmes de commercialisation et de main-d'œuvre. On a vu le nombre qui grossissait et on a produit plus. Au début, on avait 5 hectares et aujourd'hui, on a 150 000 hectares multipliés par 25 tonnes. Et vous voyez ce que ça fait pour les... Je n'ai pas fait ça toute seule, j'ai fait ça avec l'aide de tout le groupe qui m'a épaulé. Et aujourd'hui, il y a le projet AFAWA qui nous accompagne très bien. Et avec ce projet, on a pu faire des formations en marketing, en gestion de coopératives, en gestion financière. Et ils nous ont donné un outil, une plateforme Buy for Women pour pouvoir vendre nous-mêmes nos produits sur le marché international. C'est un outil important parce que nous-mêmes, on va vers les clients. C'est-à-dire qu'on peut vendre très loin. Quand tu as une grande entreprise agricole, l'avantage est que tu peux aller dans les grandes sociétés, discuter, négocier les prix et que les gens ne te fixent pas le prix qu'ils veulent. C'est toi qui fixes le prix. Avec 15 000 hectares de production, c'est les usines qui viennent à toi, qui s'installent à côté pour pouvoir prendre ta production. Et le développement vient de nous les femmes du département de Touré. Il y a 18. La condition de vie de ces femmes-là a changé, puisqu'aujourd'hui, il y a certaines qui peuvent inscrire leurs enfants dans des écoles privées, dans des universités, et d'autres qui ont acheté des terrains pour construire des maisons pour mettre en location. Et aujourd'hui, elles sont autonomes, elles peuvent faire tout ce qu'elles veulent. Et ça, c'est une très grande fierté pour moi.
Elles ont une énergie contagieuse.
You would see how the farmers were all smiles. Now let's move on to our panel discussion. I'm going to invite them on stage. Please give them a round of applause as they come on stage. It is the panel Justice for Her, Justice for the Economic Empowerment of Women in Africa. Let me start by inviting Mr. Danho Akraji, traditional ruler of Advocacy, Côte. Please come up stage. A round of applause, please. Madame Anastasie Kwadjo, President of the Uveto Cooperative and beneficiary of the AFAWA project in collaboration with UN Women. Ms. Fatou Diakite, President of the Association of Magistrates of Côte d'Ivoire. Mrs. Jilis Aswagbo, Head of Ethics at the African Development Bank. We will also invite our moderator on stage, Mrs. Nathalie Bodiong, who shall facilitate discussions and ensure that we stick to time.
Merci. Madame la Ministre.
Thank you. Madame the Minister of Women, Family and Children for Côte d'Ivoire, Mrs. Nasseneba Touré, dear members of, distinguished members of the Executive Board of the African Development Bank, Madam Senior Vice President of the African Development Bank Group, Mrs. Marilo Aking Olukbadi Ni Ndongose, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this Justice for Her panel. women's economic empowerment, which is a very important topic. Justice for her. When you say her, who do we refer to? It could be our mother, our daughter, our daughters, our students. It could be my best friend. It could also be those who are not here with us today, those who fought wholeheartedly with strength and character for the rights of the women. Her refers to you, her refers to me. I am Nathalie Bodiong, Senior Advisor, the General Secretariat of the African Development Bank. I am delighted to facilitate this panel made up of 4 panel members who will shed more light on today's theme, justice for her, from rights to women, economic empowerment. It's important to mention, as Madam Senior Vice President mentioned, as well as Madam Minister, that women account for about 50% of our African population. In sub-Saharan Africa, only 52% of these women have own a bank account, as compared to the statistics for men. We note that in sub-Saharan Africa, 95,000 dollars are considered as income for women, but then it could be much better. Well, as we meet here today, we need to understand that we shall try to break the silence and send a strong signal on our commitment for justice for her as a fundamental human right and a critical pillar for life in society. At the end of this discussion, you better understand what is justice. It's a link to economic transformation in Africa, but also its impact on the operations of the African Development Bank. Our discussions will go on for about 1 hour or 57 minutes to be more specific. Without much ado, please give a round of applause to this panel.
Et comme il a été mentionné un peu plus tôt, nous avons des jeunes.
So, as we had heard earlier, we have young persons in this room. Students, can I hear them? Please give a hand to our students. Give a hand to all those who are working to provide support to our important youth. Thank you. Let me now turn to our panelists, starting with the very first question to Lady Justice Diakite. Justice Diakite, we are here with young persons. How would you define the word justice in very simple terms, and what would justice mean for them? Thank you.
Merci, Madame la modératrice.
Madam Moderator, thank you for giving me the floor. My thanks also to the Senior Vice President, all members of the bank board, staff members of the bank, other panelists, everyone here present. And to speak simply, let me state that justice is this service offered to the public, a utility which is considered by our states as the third leg of a stool on which a modern state rests. You have the executive personified by the President of the Republic and then his cabinet, the legislature, which is represented by Parliament. And the third leg, which should not be longer or shorter than the others, is the judiciary, justice. What is the role of justice in a modern state? It is to ensure that all and sundry have what they are entitled to. When we talk about what you are entitled to, it should not be considered solely in material terms. You have a right to security, safety, protection. You have the right to access some goods, access property, access land tenure, to be recognized also as the child of X or Y. And it is a justice system which should ensure that you access what you are legally entitled to as per the instruments of the country. By instruments, I'm talking about constitution, laws, decrees, orders, circulars, whatever governs social life in a society. So the judge is the one who regulates life in society to ensure that when you are right, you know you are right. When you are in the wrong, you know you are in the wrong. Let me stop here for now. Thank you, Justice Diakite. This was quite an interesting introduction to this panel. Let me now turn to Madam Kwadio Asesi, the entrepreneur who has been a beneficiary of our program. Madam Kwadio Asesi, as a woman entrepreneur, you are the helm of one of the largest agricultural cooperatives in Côte d'Ivoire in the Bélier region. Can you tell us a bit more about the difficulties women encounter in that region in terms of access to land tenure? Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. My thanks to the African Development Bank as well as UN Women for the support which we benefited, leading to the AFAWA project. In the Bélier region, more especially in Tumudi and Chekanu administrative units, women do not really have any issues accessing land because we are in our villages, we are in our homesteads, and there it's not difficult. If you have a project, which project is in the area of agriculture, that is to till the land, we reach out to our family members, our parents, or the association will contact the village chief, tell the village chief that they have a project and that we want to implement the project, and as such we need land. So the village chief will think things over and then reach out to us, give us the land, and we'll go about our activities. That is how we go about those things in our region, in the Bélier region, more especially in Tumudi and Jekanu administrative units. What you have said is very clear. And yes, this is how it goes. You see, our cooperative is a union, it's an association. We have branches in the villages, and that is how those things happen wherever we have our branches. Is there something you want to add? Not for now. Thank you very much, ma'am. Let me now turn to my colleague, who is the ethics officer in the African Development Bank, who will share her institutional insights and outlook with us. Mr. Aswagbo, according to you, what are the main impediments to justice for women? And please link what you are going to say directly to the theme of today's event, which is justice for her. Thank you. Thank you very much, Natalie. If you allow me today, I'm going to speak in English. Let me, however, start by thanking the Gender Department in the African Development Bank, because I think it's the very first time. I've been here for 12 years now, and I think it's the very first time that we sit together to discuss women's issues. So we have erected the table and we are seated around the table.
English. Let me provide you with some language balance, since we've been listening to French since morning. Thank you for the question. As I was saying, it's wonderful that we created our own table and we are talking about these issues. First of all, we do not take any of this for granted. We just heard that in the Timodi area, they have no problem accessing land. We heard a lot of the progress that has been made already in Côte d'Ivoire and around the world by different governments and women in particular. But I'm sure the young people here today are wondering, they're saying to themselves, why are we speaking so much about women, right? Like, I can see some people don't have headsets. Il y a les écouteurs, il y a les traducteurs. So why are we speaking so much about women? We have not always been here. We have not really always been here. And as much as the mood is very light today, and I would not want to spoil it, but I just want to give you a slight recap of how far we are coming. There was a time when women were considered property, movable property, but property notwithstanding, les biens. So we were property that belonged to either our fathers before we got married and to our husbands after we got married. And then there was another time again where, of course, you can imagine it was a gathering of men, had to sit and decide if women were persons, as in, were we people? So could we vote? Could we hold political office? And could we become lawyers? Those were the questions that people actually had to sit at some time to deliberate. Of course, today we are not there. We've come a long way. But this was in the 20th century, where there were discussions as to if we were people. So thankfully, they decided after a while that we are people, and here we are. Yet, we continue to face a few barriers to justice. We continue to face a few barriers to justice, mainly externally. Internally, I think we are somewhat privileged. So when we think about the privileges that we have internally, it's because we have a good system of justice internally. So the judge told you about what justice is. In the bank, you know we have a very sophisticated internal justice system, which is both formal and informal. So in the bank, we have informal recourse mechanisms, of which my unit is a part, the ethics office. We have the ombudsperson, who is part of the informal recourse mechanisms of the bank. And in the formal mechanisms of the bank, we have the investigators represented by the Integrity and Anti-Corruption Office. You have the human resources, and you have the whole sophisticated system that ranges anywhere from disciplinary panels to staff grievance committee to the appeals that we can take all the way to the tribunal. So that is our access to justice. We don't have any barriers to justice, not even as women in the bank. So that's something good to say. But in the same sense, what grants us this access to justice, and we know it's not for want of the laws on paper, because we have seen the courts in Côte d'Ivoire, they have courts, they have everything else. So the main barriers to justice could very well be financial elsewhere. So we're not talking about the bank. Okay, very well so, even in the bank. If you get fired and you need to find a lawyer, you need to find money in order to get a lawyer. So that could be a barrier to justice. So it could be financial. It could be educational. You might not have enough information to know that you have this access to justice. So you might not even be literate to start with. And we know education is a problem for women, particularly in our current context. So what if you're not educated? Someone will tell you go to court. How do you navigate the court system? It's there, but how do you go about navigating the system? And when you go to court, or when you have access to justice, when you have access to the tribunals, you have to worry about a few things. If you're going to report something, you have to worry about if you're protected. Who is going to protect you? So assuming within the context of our bank and within the context of the workplace, you encounter a problem and you have to report that problem, who is going to protect you? In the bank, we have policies in place that protect you from retaliation. It is not because you have reported your manager for unfair behavior that your manager should retaliate against you. But do all women have these protections? And do we even, in fact, have these protections, even if they are written on paper? So those are some of the questions that we need to ask ourselves. There's a mechanism to protect us, but are we sure that it will protect us? Then it becomes a matter of trust. Do we trust the system to say what the system, to do what the system is supposed to do? Also, we ask ourselves a few questions on outcome. Are we going to receive a fair outcome? Within the bank, I think we can say that it doesn't really matter if you're a woman or if you're a man. You will probably receive a fair outcome, but that's because we have these systems in place. But what is it for other people outside? What is it for other people within the context of bank operations? Are they sure to receive a fair outcome, and will they in fact receive a fair outcome? And then, of course, the consequence. In the bank, we talk about accountability and consequence management. Will women bring actions against people fearing that there will be no accountability? For us, it's not necessarily a problem of gender. It's more a problem of if we believe that the people will be held accountable. And it's good to say that when you go to the tribunal, you could either win or lose. And when you win, there's some level of accountability. But now taking it back to society and the context in which we all live, are people necessarily held accountable? Is there a perception of accountability? Do we get the short end of the stick because we are women? Those are issues that I would like for us also to think about. Thank you.
Merci, Madame Aswakbor, qui nous a...
Thank you, Ms. Aswakbor, because you have actually shared very useful and important information with us about what the bank is already doing to ensure that there is justice within this institution. The bank is actually a vanguard in respect of justice. As she said, we are actually privileged, within the African Development Bank group. At this juncture, I will turn to the fourth panelist, His Majesty Agbaje. His Majesty is the Chief of Ajagbe Kubel. I hope I said it well. Yes, thank you. So, Your Highness, from experience, what are the difficulties women usually encounter in terms of access to land? Earlier on, Madame Kwadio Asesi did talk about the procedure in the Bélier region, and she was very clear and succinct. Things seem to be going on very well there. Now, what are your thoughts? I wish to take the floor here to thank the bank. I am very proud of the African Development Bank. When I came to this institution for the very first time, at the entrance, I saw a great lady, great not only in terms of her greatness, but also tall lady. And I was impressed by her height, and I was told she was the senior vice president, and I said, wow, this is an institution which is taking issues of gender equality very seriously. This is my own way of starting my statement, just to state that our young persons, our young leaders, young ladies who have been privileged to come here, I worked as a social welfare assistant somewhere near to the premises of the bank without ever getting access to the bank premises. So our young persons here are privileged to get into the Africa Development Bank premises because it could spur them to study hard, study widely, and assume their responsibilities. I will encourage you to do that. It is what I hoped to do. I thought when I took my retirement I would rest, but there is no rest in Africa. You know, days go by where they are dissimilar. I am very happy to be here, in fact privileged to be here in my village. Women are entitled to land. In fact, they can even inherit. My wife, my mother, Ngesan Teres, actually inherited land. It would be good for the speaker's microphone to be distanced from the headsets he's using. The interpreters are struggling to hear the speaker. Well, in Akan country, it's not easy, even though we say it's a matriarchal society, and it's the woman who knows who the real father of their child is. It's supposed to be as simple as milk or water, but it is not that easy. Having been in charge of a number of generations, I know that most of our decisions are taken when we have to parley, to sit and discuss the discussion tree. You know, decisions are taken at night, and when you sleep things over, you think things over. So, we want to ensure that justice is not only served, but is seen to be served. We talk about justice is access to your rights. You know, when we used to receive children at those social welfare centers, we always had the fundamentals: right to life, survival, and development. This should be implemented practically, because if a child is not able to access their rights, if they do not even have a birth certificate, it's difficult to go to school. You know? You, students here, you are right. You have a right to your birth certificate. That's why some of you are already at the last year of high school. Is it easy? Not everywhere. In some villages, it is extremely difficult. In villages like ours, women are entitled to inheritance, and we've come under a lot of criticisms. I was a social welfare worker. I defended women in many centers. We actually helped in setting up village savings and loans associations, or urban savings and loans associations. There were financial difficulties, it must be said, because the budget was a shoestring budget. But that's not what we are talking about here. That's not why we are here. So those women had to fight in terms of issues of gender-based violence, which we had been trained on. Some of them were beaten up. Some of them were physically assaulted. Sometimes some women were accused of making too many children, and they would move to some other town, it could be Gonzagueville, and, bring forth again 6 other children. So the fundamental issue is how to empower women, and it is what we try to do in my village. Also, we have 30-odd village associations, savings and loans associations. And we had those young women who were in difficulties. But with those savings and loans cooperatives, they've been able to develop, refurbish, or build their houses. Some of them have expansive fields, So you need to continue along those lines. In the Akan country, we do not have female circumcision, excision. This is a major step in the right direction. But in other areas, it is not the same thing. You know, there are some of those practices which we should try to eradicate. That's what I've said. So we need to make the efforts. We are trying to do everything for us to make progress. When we make progress, there is empowerment. Those women, some of them in my areas, they sell, you know, the fish that they actually fish because we are close to the lagoon, you know. So our mayor, our Lord Mayor, encouraged us, or our mother encouraged us to go further, you know, get high school certificates and even further to become what we are today. So as a woman, you have this capacity, you are the beacon, you are the light. You are the light. So this is what I can say, just to indicate that progress has been made and we should continue to forge ahead. It's an issue of vision, being steadfast. And if we continue stating this as things, you know, evolve, our mindsets will change. Let me thank you, Your Majesty. Akadi, you say women are the light, and you gave an eloquent testimony of what is happening in your village and what you are currently doing to help women to be empowered. You also underscored the need to empower women, sensitize them, and to ensure that they are incorporated in the initiatives in your village. We thank you immensely. Justice Jakite, let me come back to you. You heard the various perspectives from Madame Kwadjo, from our very dear Mrs. Asuagbo, as well as from His Majesty Akratie. What do you think we should do more for women? We heard the Honorable Minister in her address today. We do acknowledge that huge efforts have been made in Côte d'Ivoire. Can we do more? Thank you. Thank you, Madam Moderator.
Parler sans langue de bois pour dire.
Let me speak with candor. Let me state that while I will acknowledge that a lot has been said, yes, that is the case, substantially speaking. But today, I think we should now be looking at the form. Why am I saying it's more in terms of substance? Let me give you an example. You see, in the room next door, if you put boxes of banknotes, precious metals, and others, and then they tell you, Madam Senior Vice President, all what you have in that room is yours. It's true, but you should not jubilate too fast. How do I get access to what is in there? You go there, all doors are armed, bulletproof doors, blocked. There is no one to open the door. Does that make you wealthy? You don't have anything. That is the situation we find ourselves today. We do recognize that a lot has been done from the legal point of view. Criminal law, the Honorable Minister has said, a number of offenses have been established to protect women. From the civil law part of things, you have the marriage law, which has enhanced protection. Now, you get to a point where the woman has a right to bear her name. In addition to the name of her husband, she can give her name to her child, in addition to the name of her husband. Yes, a lot has been done. But in my view, the real issue is for us to understand how women, that is you, me, my mom, my aunt, my cousin, my neighbor, how they go about ensuring that their laws prevail, that their rights are entitled. In my 44 years as a magistrate, I just spent the last 20 years in an administrative tribunal where about 80–90% of the matters brought to us are land tenure related. This is the administrative, former administrative bench of the Supreme Court, and I can tell you that of the matters we have, because there's a law of 1998 which talks about equal access to land tenure for men and women, no issues. But the land certificate, and here I stand corrected by a lady from AFO who is here, who I recognize, you have only 12% of land certificates issued to women. Why can't they have access? It's because of the social constraints. Earlier on, I put this question to my neighbor to my right. You said that access to land is easy in Tumodi region. You are free to use them. Are you also allowed to own them? Her answer is no, and it's a candid answer because being in an administrative jurisdiction, I know how those things happen, and it happens in every region. Probably with some exceptions, as the chief said in his village. The law is there. The woman has the right to inherit in the same way as her brother. But in terms of practical aspects, social practical aspects, she doesn't have access. Once her husband passes on, she has little children. But you have her in-laws who come, and the social situation is such that she can't even think, about recourse to the justice system, because otherwise she would become a kind of pariah in her society. So the real issue is how to eradicate those barriers for women's right to be upheld. I don't know if you would authorize me to give a few examples.
First, on training and awareness, which all need to be done through schooling. Women need to know their rights, and if you're seeking assistance from someone, you need to understand how to properly seek assistance. So we need to properly or better train women, better educate them on their rights. And this is not the work of a judge per se, because you should understand the judge. When I say the judge, I mean the magistrate in the Anglo-Saxon concept. They swear an oath, and the oath which is sworn ensures fairness and equality for all. Judges commit themselves not to discriminate on sex, on gender, on race, on wealth. And so openly, a magistrate, should I say a judge, cannot commit themselves for someone if they have a case referred to them. If not, it's going to be an act of impartiality. And so the role of raising awareness is that done through associations. And I know there are many associations doing good work. We have the Association of Female Magistrates, which carries out awareness campaigns nationwide. And these are initiatives which need to be strengthened and supported to ensure that on their own part, they reach out to the remote areas in Côte d'Ivoire, the tiny villages in Côte d'Ivoire, to ensure that women, girls, mothers know their rights, not to train them to fight against X or Y. When you're protected within a family, it's a way of educating you. And so mention not these associations as groupings which come to train their women to become stubborn and to disobey them. No, it's a way of ensuring protection. And if you don't protect, if you don't carry out protection in this manner, then you would face situations where if your women don't know how to fight for their rights or to defend a neighbor, when it will be their own case, they're going to suffer. So this is the role which we play. And in substance, Côte d'Ivoire has made giant strides in legal documents, but it is not sufficient. We have a legal document which was amended. I think the last amendment was 2016, and this has to do with judicial assistance. And that is the crux of the matter, because legal assistance refers to a situation where when someone doesn't have financial means to access justice services, they are able to get help from the state. So that text is well written. It was drafted by legal experts. And it is mentioned that local offices are found in all jurisdictions in Côte d'Ivoire. And then the central department is found at the Ministry of Justice. Well, you know better. And again, when I say, when we refer to all jurisdictions, meaning legal representatives in all villages, it is not the case in Côte d'Ivoire. And so what needs to be done is to ensure that legal assistance is made more effective, and to also ensure that there are more means at those legal representations to provide assistance to women who don't have the means, but who need financial support so as to get access to justice. Again, I wouldn't be getting into all the details regarding the jurisdictions, but again, for you to be able to get your rights recognized on the field, you need to pay a caution fee, and the caution fee is not 10,000 or 30,000, it's from 100,000 francs. How many women living out of our big cities can pay 100,000 francs? So you see, women have rights, but they face an obstacle, and as such they need to benefit from financial assistance, or should I say legal assistance, which should make this reality on paper concrete by enabling ladies, women get access to justice. One of my collaborators has moved to the Bar Association, and I was discussing with him yesterday. He made me understand that, Madam Justice, I've got a case of domestic violence. The lady did not have the means. I'm compelled to pay everything myself. And he's a young lawyer. He's not able to pay everything, so I was able to get some help. And so he was saying he is paying everything completely to help the lady get access to justice. So again, the reality is about the difficulties in available resources. Thank you, Justice Jakite. We understood you clearly. Notably on the continuity of injustice, there is some progress that has been made, but much is still left to be done. We need to ensure that young ladies and women also get access to education. Regarding equality, I'd like to invite Madame Kouadjase, who is a beneficiary of our program through the Buy from Women program of UN Women. You benefited from this training, so can you please share with us about this training in line with our theme today? Let me start by thanking those who designed this program, because it's a very good program. AFAWA enabled us to get trained. And so we received training on several topics, notably managing our finances. Also, we received training on literacy. And this was very important for us, women living in rural areas, because it is indeed difficult when a lady or a woman doesn't know much, or she can express herself, be in front of people, or she can't text messages on her phone. And so our women in Tomodi benefited from our FAWA support, and now they've ensured their well-being. They are able to manipulate their phones. They are able to carry out transactions using mobile money because they've received literacy training. And so when I'm referring to training also, we received training on leadership. And as women living in rural areas, from this training, we were able to graduate from that training and speak as I'm doing today in front of you. Personally, it was difficult for me to take the floor the way I'm doing today, but AFAWA has been able to adjust that in our lives. And when AFAWA benefiting from AFAWA's assistance and being able to speak today, we don't want it to end here. We, women living in rural areas, we would like this program to continue providing support, to continue carrying out training. As the Lady Justice mentioned, training needs to be done to ensure the well-being of women. Without training, there is nothing, especially for us living in rural areas. Without training, there is going to be limited progress. We don't want it to end, especially the education project on literacy. We asked them, or we requested that they come again for a second wave of training, because when it was done, all women did not benefit, they did not have the privilege, and so we are really requesting that there should be a second phase of training. In addition, women living in rural areas like myself, Madam Minister mentioned a while ago, if you don't have a good project, you will not benefit from financial resources. For us women, it's not the matter of having a good project. Often, you go with a good project, but you don't receive support because you're a woman living in rural area, and you cannot really present what you wish to present. Again, if you don't receive funding, you can carry out your business as well. But if you receive funding, you can roll out your projects. And so we are requesting that AFAWA should please come back again and still support us on these training fees, the training fees, and even funding. When I'm saying funding, actually, the funding should be the collateral which banks require from us, so we can be able to launch our businesses, and then we'll refund. And so we're just requesting that the good work we started should not end now, because that good work needs to continue. It should not end midway. Again, I think the work is going to continue. I know the bank is very committed in our program. Now, I would like to turn to our participants. We have our young girls, we have colleagues. I would like to open up the floor for our colleagues to please take the floor, make some remarks, make some comments, and so we'd like to open the floor since we are lagging behind time. Are there any requests for the floor in the hall? I see a hand raised. Our young girls, our young boys, our colleagues, please, the floor is open. Take the floor. Hello everyone, I'm called Dr. Christophe Kwame from Service Côte d'Ivoire. I want to put my first question to Madam Delis Aswagbo, Ethics Head of the African Development Bank Group, not the World Bank. Apologies. Again, African Development Bank Group. So I would like to really know if at the level of the bank there is an accountability, if there's a mechanism to ensure accountability so as to avoid duplication or so as to avoid worsening the gap in the gender gap. Second question, I would like to know, are there any institutional safeguards at bank level which could be strengthened so as to better protect women's rights in infrastructure projects in countries, in infrastructure projects, notably relating to land matters and which are being financed? These are the two questions I would like to table to you. With your permission, two more questions to the Lady Justice and our end, because I also brought some questions for the Lady Justice. Apologies. Let me turn to my colleagues of the protocol to see if there are any hands raised in the hall. Yes. Okay, I see there are several hands which are raised in the hall. Sir, I think we'll come back to you later on. Thank you. Let's take two other questions and give the floor to panel members to respond. Thank you for giving me the floor. I'm called Madame Kofi Marie Chantal. I am a judge. Let me start by thanking all panel members first. And now my question to Madame Kwadjo Anastasie, who shared with us that in their region, in Tokodi, ladies did not have any access to land. So I would like her to explain the mechanism which is in place, because if I listened well, the traditional rule of Adawi mentioned that they ensured that women can inherit land. And the president of magistrates, Madame Fatou Diakite, also explained that what happens with land is not just requesting the traditional leader to give us a land, but it is a right. And so I would really like to understand the mechanisms which are in place in Tobodi to ensure that women in Tobodi get access to land. Thank you very much for your question. Could you please present yourself again, please? Good morning. I said I'm called Madame Kofi Marie Chantal. I am a judge, and I am the CEO of WINDAF Côte d'Ivoire. Last question before coming back to the panel members. Madam Moderator, thank you very much. I am Madam Mbeng Epus Kwadjo. I am auditor at the UNESCO Chair, option on gender and climate change. Thank you very much for inviting me. And so, from my viewpoint, the interest of this meeting at the AFDB is one where we have various countries. And so, as a Gabonese, I would like to understand the AFAWA project, or the AFAWA initiative. So again, I would like to understand. If the AFAWA program spreads out to other countries, because the difficulties which we face in West Africa are not the same difficulties in Central Africa, because I'm from the Central African sub-region. And so I would like to know if there are other initiatives, that's the word I was looking for, if there are similar initiatives in the Central African sub-region, especially for a country like Gabon. Thank you. Thank you very much. With your permission, let us begin from the very last question, because I see the AFAWA coordinator who is in the hall. Please take the floor. Thank you.
Bonjour.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your question, madam. So, I do confirm that AFAWA is not only present in Côte d'Ivoire, but AFAWA is present in 46 countries in Africa with a huge and strong intention to accompany women at all levels. And so we accompany women through training, capacity building, developing their projects, their business plan, and also bridging the gap they have with financial institutions, bringing them closer to financial institutions. And so we also provide financial institutions themselves to transform the way they operate so as to provide more funding to women. And so for Gabon in particular, together with my colleagues, we will be able to share with you later on the financial institutions that are part of this network. We will be delighted to share more with you on the specific activities for Gabon. Thank you. Thank you. Now to the very first question put to the panel members. Mrs. Asuagbo.
Question, and which is a very valid question. So, you know, the bank is in a privileged position. We have done all of this work internally, and the big effort we make when we're financing projects is that we don't put people in the situation in which we don't put them in a worse off situation. So we do not go into communities to create bigger inequalities. So, in direct response to the question, for every project that is mounted, we take into account the social and environmental context. And to that extent, the gender team also plays a very big role in ensuring that it doesn't lead to inequalities. You have the health team that will make sure that it doesn't lead to adverse health consequences, for example. Because every time that development comes to a place, everybody's excited about it, but sometimes it comes also with possible problems. So you can imagine a small village that is not used to having an influx of population suddenly has all sorts of contractors, all sorts of project implementation units interacting with the local people. It's a level of exposure that could be a problem. Now, in terms of land and other things, what does the bank do to ensure that the mechanisms are in place? The minister talked about governance. You know, the bank has a big department on governance that looks into every situation and sees if they have to boost the good governance of a context before the bank goes in to intervene. Granted, we cannot interfere with local laws, but we make sure that the partners with whom we partner are functioning at a level which is acceptable internationally. And that's why, as the judge said, on paper, it needs to look good, at least on paper.
Thank you so much. And what say? Shall we give a big round of applause? Thank you. Maintenant, je passerai au juge Diakité.
Let me now move to Lady Justice Diakité. There was a question which was put to you. And you would kindly be brief with your response before we wrap up our session, because I've been told we've got less than 5 minutes. So let's just be pinpoint accurate for the next questions.
En réalité, je voulais savoir, est-ce que les juges...
So, I would like to know if judges and magistrates receive training on the rights of women and gender-based violence, specifically for men. Now, regarding the traditional conflict resolution mechanisms, is it possible for traditional rulers to work less, or for the traditional rulers to get closer to you for family and community matters? Thank you.
Bien.
Thank you for the first segment of your questions. I'd like to say, be it in this specific field or other fields, when we have new legal instruments which are adopted, magistrates have to implement them. So at the central administration of the Ministry of Justice or higher jurisdictions, there are seminars which are organized to present the new developments in these legal instruments. Now, on the second point, what we do to reduce the workload of traditional rulers, well, I think it is not the goal of a judge per se, given that alternative modes for conflict resolution are provided for, and they are indeed recognized. So we have magistrates and judges who actually go receive training on mediation. It's true, they are judges in their jurisdiction. They render justice according to what we learned in school, but they are also registered on the list of mediators where in events when people don't want to waste much time at the level of courts, and due to the timing they want to carry out mediation, and so jointly they choose this option of mediation, and we have magistrates, so legal experts who jump in to provide these services. So I think everyone should be left to play their part. It could be funny for you, but I think if traditional rulers could ensure that some conflicts don't get to our level, it would be, I think, the best option possible, because it is going to be a decision from a traditional ruler recognized by their community. And so in addition to being implemented locally, it's going to even be much more recognized, because if I am in Biankuma and I see and I give a ruling, and you see Justice Fatuma Jakite gave this decision, it's going to be something in the air. But if you call the name of the traditional ruler, I think they're going to receive more respect even, and even have it properly implemented. So we should not think of reducing the workload for traditional rulers. We complement each other. And I would like to share with you that if they do their work and it's very well accepted, it will even be better for our justice system. Because you take the example of the Judicial Council in Côte d'Ivoire. We have several cases which have been dragging on for years, and we've got files which have been packed. And if these things had been settled earlier, people will not be frustrated, and they would believe that justice has been rendered. However, even if a judge works 48 hours per day, they would not clear those files as speedily as people expect. Thank you, Justice Jakite. Dear participants, unfortunately we are wrapping up our session. I'm saying unfortunately because let me also point out that there was a question that was put to Madame Kadio. We have not forgotten that question. We would have sideline discussions after this meeting. Let me just turn to the various panel members. Please, could you share your final statements in 15 seconds? Just a few words. 15 seconds, please. Justice for her is a matter that concerns all, beginning from men. And without women, there is no family. Without women, the man will not be fulfilled, and without fulfillment at home, children will not be fulfilled. So let's ensure that justice is well protected, well defended, and let's ensure social and total cohesion. Thank you. My closing statement is simply to say thank you to UN Women and our initiative with the African Development Bank, and also to tell them that we would like to continue working with them. Let the AFAWA initiative continue with us, please. Thank you.
Yes, in conclusion, to me, when you think of her, her is any of us. We are all her. So it's your children, it's your mothers, it's your sisters, it's your wives. So for justice for her, we're thinking we have enough on paper. We need to be deliberate. We need to be intentional. And we really need to question ourselves at every instance what we can do for her to be better. Thank you.
Thank you. Well seen, Asa Majesty.
You're Hannes, closing statement. Microphone, please. Speaker's microphone, please. The interpreters can hear the speaker. Thank you.
Persévérons.
Perseverance, and let us burst the bubble. So in a few words, our take home is that justice for women is a fundamental right which needs to be respected and protected. We're also going to take away that we need to strengthen our laws and policies which protect the rights of women, and we need to support women who've been victims of injustice. Just as Justice Jakite mentioned, we need to educate and raise awareness within our society on the importance of justice, but also about gender equality in our society. Together, we can achieve this. And so let me end with these words of our Senior Vice President, who mentioned that we need to be bold. Thank you.
Mesdames, Mesdemoiselles et Messieurs,
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your patience. And dear panel members, thank you for this very interactive and wonderful panel. Without much ado, we would invite Dr. Ramzi Ali, Director of the Personnel Service, for his closing statements before we move out of this auditorium for refreshments.
bien sûr avec vos applaudissements pour l'encouragement.
Please a round of applause as he comes on stage.
Distinguished panelists, colleagues, partners, friends, it's almost good afternoon, so I won't make this long. As we bring this important conversation to a close, allow me to begin by expressing our sincere appreciation to the Honourable Minister, the SVP, for their insightful address and for their leadership in advancing women's rights and access to justice. Their presence today, as well as yours, has strengthened the bridge between policy ambition and development action. I also extend heartfelt thanks to our distinguished panelists and moderator for a rich and thoughtful exchange, and to all participants who joined virtually across our regions. Today's discussion has reaffirmed a fundamental truth. Access to justice is not an abstract legal concept. It is the foundation of economic agency. It determines whether a woman can own land, formalize her business, access finance, inherit property, enforce a contract, or seek redress in the workplace. In short, it determines whether rights translate into real economic opportunity. We have heard clearly that although women represent half of Africa's population, structural barriers, legal, institutional, economic, and normative, continue to constrain their ability to claim and exercise their rights. These barriers are not only unjust, they're economically costly. When women are excluded from full participation, productivity is lost, enterprises remain informal, labor participation is limited, and growth is slowed. Justice for Her has reinformed three key messages for us as a bank. First, advancing women's access to rights and justice is central to Africa's structural transformation. It is not peripheral to development. It is foundational to inclusive and sustainable growth. Second, reform must go beyond legislation alone. Implementation, enforcement, affordable legal services, institutional accountability, and shifts in social norms are equally critical. The lived experiences shared today remind us that policy change must translate into practical access. Third, the African Development Bank Group has a distinct and strategic role to play. Through our policy dialogue, financing operations, governance, and safeguards at work, private sector engagement, and partnerships with governments, civil society, regional institutions, and development partners, we can more deliberately integrate gender-responsive access to justice considerations into our own work. As we reflect on this year's International Women's Day theme, rights, justice, action for all women and girls, the emphasis on action resonates strongly. Dialogue is essential. Evidence is critical. But impact requires follow-through. Let us therefore carry forward the practical insights emerging from today's panel. Strengthening gender-responsive legal and regulatory reforms in our regional member countries, embedding access to justice considerations into women's economic empowerment operations, supporting business formalization pathways for women entrepreneurs, promoting labor protections and institutional accountability, and continuing to engage men and community leaders in transforming norms that constrain women's economic rights. Internally, we need to keep advancing our gender agenda by ensuring that every woman who works for the bank is given a voice, exposed to the same career advancement opportunities, and is supported in having a fair and reasonable work-life balance. We must all continue enforcing our own institutional standards and safeguards to ensure that our development operations uphold rights, reduce inequalities, and contribute meaningfully to inclusive growth. Justice for her is justice for families. Justice for her is productivity for economics. Justice for her is prosperity for Africa. And justice for her is for the bank. Distinguished guests, colleagues, thank you once again for your engagement and commitment. I thank the bank's team that has worked dedicatedly behind the scenes to put this event together. I advise that the team share a concise summary note that captures key messages and indicative action plans internally to sustain this momentum. We must sustain this momentum. Let us leave this discussion not only informed, but resolved to act. Thank you, and I wish you all a meaningful International Women's Month.
Mesdames, Mesdemoiselles.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have officially come to the end of our event. We'd like to thank all speakers, panel members, colleagues, students, pupils who have been part of today's event, International Day of the Women. As mentioned a while ago, we have refreshments outside the auditorium. You are invited them and continue our discussions. Thank you, everyone, and have a nice day. Thank you.